Hello, and a special thanks to my audience for being here today. Thank you for allowing me some of your time. The topic I'd like to speak with you today about is a grim one. It may seem callous at times, but it's a necessary one. I feel that there's a need for prison reform in this country, and that's what I would like to speak with, death penalty reform in this country, and that's what I'd like to speak with you today about. The death penalty should be the mandatory sentence for murder cases that have overwhelming physical evidence, eyewitness testimony, confession, and are not based on circumstantial evidence. According to prisonpolicy.org, there are 2.3 million people in correctional facilities in the U.S. as of March of 2019. Of that group, 179,000 are incarcerated for murder. While some of these individuals may be there wrongfully accused or on circumstantial evidence, that's not the case for many of these individuals. To give a bit of a visual representation of this, here's a diagram of prison populations, and if you can see, down here is those convicted of murder. I've gathered an abundance of information from a variety of sources that span over 2 decades, showing that this has been and continues to be a problem. Some of the sources that I've used are the Bureau of Prisons, the Death Penalty Information Center, prisonpolicyinitiative.org, Robert Blecker, who is a New York Law School professor, and I've also used a book titled Debating the Death Penalty, Should America Have the Death Penalty? Experts on both sides make their case. Some of my main points that I'm going to go over today is the individuals that would be affected by changes in this law, some of the costs that it costs taxpayers in the U.S. to try these individuals, and the cost to house them for the rest of their lives, as well as some of the living conditions while they are housed for the rest of their lives. So to start, many of the individuals that I'm talking about are incarcerated for heinous and vicious murders, yet society must house and provide for the criminally insane. Murder trials currently cost an average of $740,000 in the U.S., and death penalty cases average $1.26 million, with taxpayers paying an additional $90,000 per year for each inmate that is on a death penalty case. According to a release from the Bureau of Prisons, the Federal Register, the daily journal of the United States government, the cost to house one of these inmates in a federal prison averages $31,000 each year. Federal prison inmates would be one of the murder prisoners that I'm talking about. Here are some examples of some of the individuals that would be affected by the change in this death penalty law. The first one up is going to be Richard Ramirez. Some of these individuals you may not have heard of, so I've just put a brief statistic in there with them to show to the audience as well. So the brief statistic: murdered 13 people, trial cost $1.8 million. Lasted several years. There was abundance of physical evidence. There was confession. There was eyewitness testimony to one of the attempted murder victims. So you can see why this case may fall into these grounds. Yet another one would have been Edmund Kempner. Murdered 8 people, and one of these people he murdered while he was a juvenile and went to prison for, served a sentence until he was 21 and was released, later murdered several other people, his grandparents, and I won't get into the heinous details of the crime, but he's definitely somebody that would fall under this category. And the last one I have is Jeffrey Dahmer. Most people have heard of this one. Murdered 17 people. Fortunately, this individual did not end up costing us a lot of money as far as taxpayers are concerned. He was murdered in prison by another inmate. A couple other people that I don't have pictured that people may know would be Terry Blair. This was a more recent case, 2004. Served 21 years, was released, served 21 years on a murder charge as an adult, and was released after 21 years to commit more murders yet again. So this is kind of my reasoning why some of these individuals shouldn't be housed for the rest of their lives. They shouldn't be provided for by taxpayers because of the heinousness of their crimes. Justice should be swift, harsh. The penalty shouldn't be on society. The penalty should be on the individuals that make these decisions. Where am I going? No. So you can see why some of these individuals shouldn't be afforded lengthy trials. They shouldn't be afforded lengthy prison sentences. A couple of these individuals have served 46 years in prison with taxpayers paying the cost, and they say that they're happy there. There's luxuries provided to many of these individuals. One of them was married while on death row and still remains on death row to this day and is married. Taxpayers paid the bill for that. They continue to pay the bill to house him, and as well as the additional $90,000 that it costs on top of $30,000 to house a standard inmate. Death row inmates cost an additional $90,000 per year. This cost shouldn't be a burden to society, and I think if we change the laws and we make justice more swift, more harsh, maybe the individuals will make less of these choices to commit these crimes. All right, so now my last point that I'm going to get into is probably the biggest topic and the biggest reason why we shouldn't have death penalty reform in this country, is the lack of help for the mentally ill. Mentally ill people are almost 80%, according to prisonpolicy.org, of those individuals that commit these crimes. But we spend $81 billion a year, according to the Federal Prisons Bureau, on correctional facilities. Yet a small fraction of that cost is spent on aid for the mentally ill. Maybe if we spent a little more time and effort to help these individuals before they commit these crimes, they may not commit them. And also, if society knows that there's a harsher punishment for them, maybe they won't decide that they want to go commit these crimes and live out their lives in prison. That's my main points for today. I hope I've kind of opened everybody's eyes. I hope it hasn't came across too callous. Death penalty reform is a serious thing. It's something that we need to do. Thank you for sharing your time with me. Special thanks to my auditors for being here today.